vocabulary instruction. As we all know, Common Core has caused educators and scholars to rethink how we teach objectives inside the classroom. Some of you guys who have been teaching for a long time probably can see the difference between teaching 20 years ago and teaching now. Would you guys like to share some of the difference that you have seen?
I think Common Core has a lot more of children working with you and asking you questions instead of you asking the children questions. A lot more child participation and children-led instruction.
Have you seen any difference in vocabulary instruction?
There's a much bigger focus on vocabulary.
It is. Common Core has raised expectations for word learning. And Fisher and Fryer stated that in one of their articles. Right here we have one of our Common Core standards. It says use words and phrases acquired through conversations, reading and being read to, and response to text. And that's just one of the many Common Core standards that are related to vocabulary instruction. Okay? I'm not going to read all this to you guys, but some of the things that are highlighted in here is distinguishing shades among meanings distinguishing shades of meaning among verbs, describing the same gender actions like walk, march, strut, prance. Just letting students know that there are different ways to use words, and there are other words that mean the same thing. All right. Why is vocabulary instruction important? Do you guys want to elaborate why you think vocabulary instruction may be important? Okay. Vocabulary instruction is important because comprehension is tied directly to vocabulary. Vocabulary knowledge is one of the best indicators of verbal ability. Vocabulary knowledge in kindergarten and first grade is a significant predictor of reading comprehension in the middle and secondary grades. Okay? Studies have found that by age 4, children in middle and upper class families hear about 15 million more words than children in working class families and 30 million more words than children in families on welfare. So sometimes you may get those students who may not come from educated families, and so they don't have that rich background than those students who participate in rich conversations with their parents every day. So they come to school kind of at a disadvantage than those students that do. Okay? Who needs vocabulary instruction? Everyone needs vocabulary instruction. Mm-hmm.
Just on different levels and different degrees.
On different levels and different degrees. All right, who needs vocabulary instruction? ELL students, which are English language learning students, students with learning disabilities, and students enrolled in content area classes, which covers all students. All right, ELL students' vocabulary affects their oral and reading vocabulary. These students are learning how to speak, read, and write in a different language. So teachers need to be very sensitive when they have ELL students in their classroom because everything is foreign to them. So some of the words that are already complex in their own language, it'll still be very complex in the new language that they're trying to learn. Studies show that studies show that ELL students who score proficient on standardized tests still score 30% lower than English-only students. So even if they score proficient, their scores are still 30% lower than those English-only speaking students. All right. Students with learning disabilities. The Individuals with Disabilities Act ensures that students with disabilities receive proper education. This includes students with learning disabilities. These students have trouble with cognitive processing, meaning that you may have those students who have developmental delay, rulings in your classroom, so it's hard for them to process things mentally. So when they're receiving vocabulary instruction, it's even harder for them to process those complex words. All right? Students enrolled in content areas, which are all students, and in math and reading and social studies and science. And even though we teach kindergarten, some of those teachers in the higher level grades, sometimes they don't focus on vocabulary as much as they focus on just teaching the content. And studies have shown that if they were focused on tying vocabulary into their instruction, that their scores would be higher because their students would actually comprehend what they're learning. All right, students enrolled in content areas. Content area vocabulary instruction is very critical. Some words are strictly content related. Words like algorithm and integer. You only hear those in a math setting. We wouldn't just walk around saying those words. There are other words that have multiple meanings depending on the context that they are being used in. Words like leg and table are used in everyday conversations, but when they are in math settings, they take on a whole different meaning. All right, how are words categorized? Words are categorized in a tier process. It's not the same tier process like we use in response to intervention. Even though it's set up like that, it's a little different. You have tier 1, which are everyday words. You have tier 2, which are general academic words. And you have tier 3, which are domain specific words. And I'm going to explain a little bit more to you guys on that after you guys watch this short video.
What does vocabulary instruction look like? What should it look like?
Well, you would see little kids, or lots of little kids, learning very interesting words, sophisticated words, what's called tier 2 words, what some of us will call hard words. They're low-frequency words in oral language. They appear in printed language, in written text. So that's what you'd see, traces of that. You'd see them talking about the word. You'd see them trying to distinguish where their one use of the word, example of a word was a good one and one was not. You'd see them trying to develop a situation that would use the word. So you'd see lots of interesting talk and directed talk about a word, a sophisticated word.
Give us an example, like from corduroy, if you can remember one. I bet you've read it a lot of times.
Yeah, corduroy is a special one that I like because early in a program of research, my colleague Mark McCown and I used to go out to kindergartens and first grades and read stories to kids, and then afterwards pull out a couple of the words. And one would read and the other one would take notes. So I was reading A Pocket for Corduroy to a kindergarten class, and we'd gone through it, stopped and asked some questions, and afterwards I said, so one of the words in the story was reluctant. Do you remember Lisa was reluctant to leave her teddy bear in the laundromat? I'm reluctant to ride a roller coaster, so I try to expand the use of it. Some children are reluctant to eat spinach. Could you tell me something you'd be reluctant to do? And one said, I'd be reluctant to leave my teddy bear in the laundromat. And I went, just like Lisa. Could you tell me, and that's what they will do, could you tell me something that is not like Lisa? I'd be reluctant to leave my teddy bear in the supermarket. Oh yeah, that's different. Then went on until finally I'd be reluctant to leave my drums. This was right after Christmas at my friend's house. And then it clicked in my head that reluctant means having something to do with leaving something. So I said, could you tell me something that you'd be reluctant to do that has nothing to do with leaving anything? And I probably got the best answer I've ever gotten from kindergarten through doctoral programs. And this little 5-year-old raised her hand and said, I'd be reluctant to change a baby's diaper. Now, I do believe that every child will pass that item on their college entrance exam because the example was so superb.
Okay. All right, so how are words categorized? You have tier words, which are general everyday words with widely acknowledged meanings and common usage. And those are those words that we just use in everyday conversation with our friends. You have tier 2 words, which are special, general vocabulary that takes on special meanings when they're adapted to particular content area. Those are those words like leg and algorithm. Then you have tier 3 words, which are technical, words that have usage and application only in a particular subject matter or field. And those were those words like algorithm, and, integer. And then a tier 2 words was the word, like the word leg and table. Alright, what vocabulary instruction looks like in primary grade? You have high quality classroom language, read aloud to students, explicit vocabulary instruction, and small group discussions. Alright, high quality classroom language is explain the meaning of words the first time they are used in the classroom setting. Alright, who has fewer pencils? And you will stop right there and you explain to the students, okay, fewer means less. Alright, you can use parallel language. The medicine makes him drowsy. You can use another sentence and say the medicine makes him sleepy, explaining that drowsy and sleepy means the same thing. You can provide opportunities for students to use new words that they have learned in meaningful conversations. So you can provide opportunities for the students to talk to you about the words or ask them to use specific words in sentences that they have learned. All right, read aloud. Read aloud increase students' vocabulary knowledge. Provide a rich discussion before and after reading. KWL charts are great tools for discussions. You can talk about words that you think students may not know the meanings of. What does the word ill mean in a book that you're reading? Raise your hand if you could use read aloud in your classroom. Everyone uses read aloud. All right, small group discussions. You can use the code of readers to facilitate small group discussions and enhance vocabulary knowledge. Raise your hand if you read this with your students today. The Big Trip. Okay? When you guys read The Big Trip, okay? It says, before reading, you can discuss the title of the story before your students are reading it. Raise your hand if you discuss the title of the story with your kids today before reading. Okay? Did you guys ask your students what the word trip means? Yes. Okay? So some of the questions you can ask, you can figure out a word in your title and say, what does the word trip mean? Some of your possible responses may be, some of my kids told me to fall, trip over, trip to the beach, vacation trip. Okay? And you can explain to your students the difference between tripping over something and going on a trip. Okay? You can ask your students what they think the word trip means in the title of the story, and you did that. Okay, and then you can tell your kids we're gonna have a big question. You refer back to it after the story. You could have took a poll for your kids to say, how many of you guys think the trip means tripping over something? How many of you guys think that trip means going somewhere in this story? And they all would have raised their hands, and you could have wrote it on a little board. And then after the story, you could have said, okay, well, what did trip mean in that story? Okay. During reading, discuss words and sentences that may be confusing to the students. In this book, there was a sentence that said, Big Babs feels it. So I stopped. I said, what do you guys think that feel means? Some of my kids says to feel something, to touch something. Some said to feel something up. And I said, yeah, you guys are right. I said, but there's a difference between feel, F-E-E-L, and F-I-L-L. You can give them examples of using the word feel in the correct way. I think I took an example. I told the children that, like, we could fill this cup up with pencil. I mean, there's not, if you don't have any more room left in the cup because it's filled up. Okay? After reading, you can refer back to your big question. You can say, what do you think the word trip means in the story now? And they'll tell you what they thought it meant. You can ask the students if they found out what it meant, and you can have them explain. All right? And then you could have asked your students to tell you about the time they took a trip. All right. Explicit vocabulary instruction. Explicit vocabulary instruction consists of activities specifically designed to teach new words. All right. You use strategies such as word sorts, word walls, graphic organizers, word parts, and context clues. An example of explicit instruction could be, how many of you guys have read this week? Not yet. Okay. Before you read this with your students, you can ask them. This book does not have the word telescope in it, but you can ask them if they know what a telescope is. I did that with my students, and some of them said something to play with, something to mow the yard with, and you can have them draw a picture of what they think a telescope looks like. All right. Then I explained to them exactly what a telescope was, and then I talked to them about that they can use a telescope to see these things that are in their book to make it look closer. So that's an example of explicit vocabulary instruction. I took a word and I taught that word specifically. All right. Would anyone like to share something that they have learned? And does anyone have any questions? If not, I thank you guys for participating today.